Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining today for this lunchtime information session regarding the Australasian Women in Emergencies Network and Philippa Woolf Scholarship opportunity for members of the AWE network. My name is Amanda Lamont, and I am a co-founder of the Australasian Women in Emergencies Network, and I'm delighted that you've had the time to join us today to hear some more about the scholarship opportunity and from Philippa Woolf herself. I am coming to you today from the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I pay my deepest respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and acknowledge continued connection to land and country and custodianship for over 60,000 years. And I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from which you're all joining from today. Now, we're joined today by Philippa Woolf. Philippa Woolf is the Director at the Australian Centre for Investigation Solutions. Oh, you better correct me on that, Philippa, when you speak. She started in that role in 2012. Prior to establishing that business, she was a member of the New South Wales Police Force for over 25 years, working in a number of different leadership roles. Her organisation is a registered training organisation, building capacity and capability in niche areas of emergency management, investigation and regulatory practice through nationally accredited and short course training programs. So a little bit of the background to this, the Philippa Woolf Scholarships provided to all members. This is the third year that we've been able to offer scholarships to women in the emergency management sector, and this provides an opportunity for them to build their leadership skills. Some of the information you will have seen talks about one scholarship opportunity being made available, but we're really delighted today to announce that we actually are providing 2 scholarships through this program. So there's 2 scholarships for members to study the Diploma of Public Safety in Emergency Management at the Australian Centre for Investigation, Incident and Management Solutions. So Philippa is going to tell you a little bit more about what's involved in those programs in a little bit. I'm going to put some information in the chat box with links through to the page on your website and the scholarship information kit and how you can apply for the scholarship. So just some logistics here. The scholarships are now open, applications are now open, and they close on the 30th of April, and we'll announce the winners of those scholarships in May. I just want to give you the heads up that part of the application process, if you haven't seen, is to provide a letter of support from somebody. So don't leave it to the last minute. And there are a number of requirements for you to comply with. But that's the really key one to understand, that don't just do it the night before, because there's a letter of support that's required. So as I put some information in the chat box, Philippa, can I hand across to you and for you to give us a little bit of information about why you've decided to provide these scholarships through your organisation, a bit of a background of our relationship with you, and a little bit about course content and what people can expect from the program. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Amanda and Bridget. Okay, I joined the network when it first sort of started, when it first started a few years ago, and as part of a conversation I had with someone in there, we were talking about leadership skills for women, and having had an emergency management background with policing, I had worked in the special weapons area for a few years as a coordinator, and I felt I was at that level of management that required me to do a lot, I felt, operationally, but I didn't have a huge amount of confidence in that space. So I felt that if I'd had some additional training at that operational leadership level, I felt I would have really benefited from it. There was training around, but it wasn't specifically about emergency management leadership, which I think in the broader context would have been helpful to me. So that was the sort of the genesis of the scholarship in the first place. And I had of course an RTO that delivered those programs, and meeting some of the participants on that reinforced to me that it was a bit of a gap. And I think it's a tough industry to be in if you're a woman anyway. So I thought if anything that we could provide that would give you confidence would be useful. So that's sort of where it came from. and why I picked the diploma particularly is that it's a really good, it's 10 units of competence. It's a really strong foundation of emergency management to allow for those interagency discussions and stakeholder engagement that if you're in an EM agency, even in a support role, that we're doing routinely. And it was a bit more science around the madness, so that you could actually do some planning about your own career and building those relationships that were going to help you during the traditional response phase. Given, and Amanda and I were talking about it a bit earlier with Bridget about the level of accountability in communities now, and the focus on how we respond to major incidents. And I think, you know, we need some support around how we do that. So training's a big part of that. So the other reason I like the diploma is because it's the beginning of that thinking around strategic management. So if you're looking at a leadership career in emergency management, it's a great sort of opening up of the more strategic levels, which I didn't get myself until I was in my 30s. I was working very operationally, very task focused, very you know, aim and shoot sort of, it's probably not a great euphemism, but you know what I mean, that sort of focus of my work. And when I moved into a more senior leadership role as the HR manager, it was a bit foggier to me. So I think this is a really good course for that as well, to understand the bigger picture of emergency management and how that impacts on how you do your work at your management level. It's still got units about leadership, and Kath Burke from our office has joined us. She also delivers on this as well. And so you've got those leadership units in there, but you've got a really good broad base for career progression, I think is why I like it so much. And 5 of the units in this qual then go on to the advanced diploma units, and you've already got 5 then to do that if you so want to. But I think that was the method in the madness, Amanda, and why I think it's such a great fit. And we're seeing so many more women in those operational leadership roles that any support we can give them to perform as well as they can is really good.
Thanks, Philippa. And obviously what you've just described aligns so beautifully and perfectly with our vision for the Australasian Women in Emergencies Network to both celebrate and promote the role of women in emergencies, but also support and encourage the development of those skills and capability further, so that we can see women in those leadership roles and all roles. So we are so ever grateful for the opportunity that you've provided, and obviously our graduates from the program have going on to bigger and better things, and I see one of them particularly regularly, and I'm just so proud of how I see her blossoming and moving up in her career. So thanks to the work that you've provided to her. And I know that having this on her CV and our other graduates as well puts them in really great stead to getting those job opportunities, both just not just having it on their CV, but the way they are able to present their skill set and demonstrate what they've learned. I think it's invaluable. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Pleasure.
For those that are joining us, I'm just going to give you a little bit more information about the admin side of the scholarships, and then we can go into some questions and answers. So you can ask directly either questions to me or, more importantly, Philippa, while we've got her here, if you've got some specific questions. But just in case these are the ones you've got, here's some key information. I mentioned applications are now open. I've put links in the chat box where you can access further information specifically about the course, and also about the application process, and also the application form, which is pretty simple. Fill in some information. We ask you, the requirements are that you're living in Australia. Unfortunately for our New Zealand counterparts, it's not open to them, I don't believe, Philippa, is that right? Yeah, just for Australian residents. You must be a member of the Australasian Women in Emergencies Network. You're required to complete a statement, only 250 words, about why you're applying for the scholarship. We ask that you indicate that you do have the appropriate language literacy and numeracy skills to successfully complete the program. And also we ask for your commitment that you're prepared to study remotely for the duration of the program, so it's a remote course. And finally, as I mentioned, we're asking for a letter of support from your employer or from your volunteer organisation or from a referee, if appropriate, to support your application. So there's a little bit of work to do before you submit that, but it's not overly onerous, and we've done that on purpose. We know that you're busy in the work that you're already doing, so we want to make this simple, but enable us to make really good decisions when we go through the process of choosing. So we will review your application, the letter of support. We'll put together a short list of applicants and we will ask the shortlisted applicants to attend a short interview as part of the selection process. And we'll just make sure that we've got all the answers to the questions that they need. So there are the links. There's some basic information. I don't want to take up too much more of your time because you might have some really specific questions. So let me pass over to you to unmute yourselves and put your video on if you like, and ask questions directly, or if you'd like to type them in the chat box. So I think Dawn's gone off mute. Do you have a question for us? No. Kate, you've gone off mute.
Oh.
No, we can't hear you, Kate. Is your headphone set plugged in? We'll come back to you, Kate. We'll go to Rebecca first. Rebecca, do you have a question?
Yes, actually, Philippa, I would be really interested to hear a bit more about the alumni, well, sorry, not the alumni, some of the course presenters. I was just looking on the website. I note you've got David Parsons there on your panel of teachers. I'd just like to hear a bit more about the crew that you've pulled together.
Oh, okay. So how the program works is we have the first phase is we would look at whether you had any RPL for any of the units that you've already got extensive experience in. So you'd send through your resume. Well, I'd have it from the application process. And then of the 10 units, I think previously, I think the other participants have had maybe one or two, or it depends. Some of them want to do the full unit anyway. And then once we get your training plan, then you have a virtual classroom. So we'll send you the resources, or we'll put you on the Moodle, and you can pull down the resources and have a look at the assessment task. And then you will arrange with Anita or Kath a tutorial time. And then, so it would be an hour where we would talk about, you know, certain aspects of the unit. And in those, Rebecca, David Parsons might do one, depending on which one the unit is and his availability. Kath might do one, I'll do one. So that's sort of how we bring them into the program, because he has expertise, particularly in the incident management units. So yeah, we would bring him in for special areas, and if there's a couple of participants, we would do two together. So that's how we would bring in the guest speakers. So yeah, so it's it would only be yourselves and one other person, like in the scholarship, maybe both scholarship people or one, to do the tutorial. So they're quite tailored, and you do the reading beforehand and you say, I don't know what they meant by this reading, or what do you think about that, or and it's sort of where the relationship starts to build, and we can understand a bit more about each other, and we can also support you in whatever the particular activity is that you're doing.
Fantastic, thank you.
And Philippa, Kate's having trouble with her audio, but she's interested to know how long the diploma takes to complete. Is there a minimum number of units per semester?
No, what we say, there's 10 units altogether. So we usually say it runs over 12 months, because I think one unit a month every 30 days will keep it ticking over. So you will have an enrolment though for 18 months if you need it. So like we had last year was just such a shocker for everyone. So in this sector particularly, so it can be extended, but the rules around it with registered nationally accredited training is 18 months. So that's how we would do it. And if you get too far behind, it can be hard to come back, although we'll work hard to keep you on track. But that's how it usually works. Yep.
Okay, yep.
Yep, plan.
Kate says that's perfect. Susie, I saw you come off mute before. Did you have a question?
Well, my question just got answered, so sorry, it was the same question.
That's all
but
good.
Can I just take this opportunity to just say thank you so much to Philippa for actually organising this and giving us women this wonderful opportunity. And I think you guys do an amazing job. So well done to all of you that are involved in this whole thing. And yeah, good on you.
Oh, thank you, Susie. I don't do very much. I do the Amanda and Bridget do the bulk of the work there, but happy to support. I think women make such a difference, having been in a male-dominated environment for so many years myself, that I think it's good to have the voice at the table, but an informed voice is even better.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so I'm sure we're all in admiration of you and really respect what you have done in this whole emergency field. It is difficult being a woman in what's always been considered, men's work, and I've found that even at a local SES unit level, it's just not that anything's been they're not kind of against you or anything, but you do feel like you've just got to prove yourself that little bit more. And it just takes a little bit longer to get accepted. But they're great guys to work with as well. And yeah, we need to be proud of what we have done as women, and I think we are. It's great that you're there to support us all. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Susie.
Thanks for the comments, Susie, very much, and echo those as well. Alyssa, your question.
Thanks, Amanda. I just wondered, in regard to you noted that there was 10 units. There's obviously 5 core units. How do you choose which electives are best to do out of the list?
Yep, that's a good question, Alyssa. So what we would do is, before we do your tailored plan, we have a meeting and like this. And I'll have your history and everything, and then either myself or Kath, where do you want to go? If you're not doing any incident management at all, then you might be working in a support agency. Not that you don't do incident management, but the way those units are shaped are more for control agencies. So you might choose to do recovery units rather than units around response. So we would talk about that. And then within the packaging rules, we'd work out a plan that you're happy with. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have any, apart from the core, you can have any of the others. So it's just a discussion about where you want to be, how you're going to get there, what would be most useful to you. And they can change along the way to some extent. As you finish one, so there's one in the core that's design EM exercises, and exercise management has never been under more scrutiny. Why we exercise what we do, why we don't exercise other things when there's clearly been a pattern of this incident occurring, is part of the many reviews. So you might say, look, I'll be doing an exercise, but not for 6 months. So we'll just put that towards the end, and then you can use the documents that you've created as part of that, as part of the assessment as well, and get feedback on them. So it's very flexible. With only 2 people, we have the luxury of doing that.
Okay, so if you'd already completed some of those units of competence,
yeah,
obviously you can get an RPL. So would you just, like, for example, if I had done, you've obviously got the 5 core subjects. If I had already done a couple of the electives, would I just put those aside and select a new, select 5, or would I only do 4 electives and put the previous unit of competence towards that? How would that work?
Yeah, that could be flexible as well. So if you want the credit transfer, if it's a straight credit transfer, you actually hold the unit, we'll just put it against the structure and you'll finish earlier.
Okay.
But if you wanted to do it, I wouldn't say you can't do it. If you wanted to do another unit, I wouldn't say you can't do it, but you would have definitely, I'm obliged to do that with our regulator to nationally to accredit nationally accredited units people already hold. Otherwise, they'd just say, yeah.
Yep. And I also had another question, sorry. In regard to, like you said, roughly 1 unit per month, is it all self-paced, self-guided, or are there Zoom sessions or another online session where the group comes together, you know, once a month or whatever?
Yep, they are self-paced, but you do have the tutes. So you just ring up and book and say, I want to do a tute. And if you've got a really busy job during the day, we do offer them on weekends and also at night for these students, because it's better than cancelling at the last minute because you're flat out at work. For us, because we can structure it better. So some people do like a 5 o'clock session or something like that. I mean, you can email us at any time for support or that sort of a thing, but there is a tute. If we're running a group, we mainly do organisational groups, and they don't like visitors in their room because they're airing their dirty laundry. We're problem solving things. But if we're running a group of independent learners from all over the place, and there's a session going to be on design EM exercises, say, you could come along to that.
Okay. And are those tutes, is it just, how many people are in those tutes normally?
Oh, it can depend. Sometimes I do one-on-one if somebody's really waiting, and at this stage for the scholarship people, we'll do one-on-one or one-on-two. I would prefer to do the 2 people together because I think you get the networking then.
Absolutely.
And the support.
Great. And my last question is, when does it begin?
Oh, you can start anytime. As soon as the process is finalised, we just send you the information. We do the tailored learning plan, and then we start to lock it in, the calendar, and go from there. So some people go on holidays and say, I'd like to do 2 units on holidays. Some people say, I'm going on holidays and I don't want to do any units. So push them all back. So yeah, we just, you'll meet Anita, who does all our coordination, who you'll just love, who's fantastic, and Kath, who does our EM programs. So we try and be as flexible as we can within the constraints.
Great.
And
Thanks a lot,
Philippa, is there, obviously, you can start straight away, but what's the other side of that? When's the latest people can start?
Oh, for this, gee, I think you'd have to get going within about 3 months, I think. Otherwise, it's going to make it too difficult for you to catch up in the time frame, depending on what you're bringing to the table. But yeah, I think you'd have to have commenced within 3 months. I don't think that's written anywhere, but we could do that.
That's good to know. Kate's going to have another crack. Has their audio worked? No, it hasn't. Okay, so Kate has another question here. She wants to know about assessment. Is it all assignment based, or is there an exam element to assessment?
Oh, no exams. There's lots of things that you do in the assessment process, but that's a good point too, Kate. They do require, it's a diploma level qualification. So that's at AQF, which is Australian Qualifications Framework, level 5. So you are going to have to do some reading, and EM literature is a little dry at times, and the legislation's dry at times, but you will have to, that's that strategic aspect of it. So you will have to read that and also do submissions around, and Kath might correct me there, but around the 2,000 word mark for some of it's not a slab of 2,000 words. There's questions, and then you'll do, we use case studies where we review other emergency response that are in the public domain, so coronials, or there might be other independent reviews, and then you'll comment about that. So there is a lot of written work that is a big part of it, and that's as you move up the levels, you have to demonstrate. It's not bad anyway. You need to be good on paper in a leadership role. It's sad but true. You have to be good on paper, because people will make assessments of your competence and your professionalism by what they're reading. So I can't really apologise for that, but if you want to move up, then, and given the scrutiny that your records are looked at and your planning and your preparation in emergency management, you don't want them turning up anywhere unless they're at a high standard. So it's a good opportunity to build those skills if you haven't got them. And I think that's one of the things I did notice with one of the previous recipients, Amanda, was her growth in writing from the beginning to the end. She really took the feedback on board, and she really developed her skill, her communication skill on paper. It was lovely to see, actually, when you looked at the first and the last, but it was because she was doing them every month, doing the work, doing the analysis, writing in a really professional way. It was great to see.
Oh, thanks. That's really good insight and feedback. And Kate is very happy that she doesn't have to go somewhere to sit exams, and she's doing assignments.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen any other hands, but I've got some questions. What have the previous applicants found most challenging in doing this?
I think the time, if it's a new concept, devoting the time to actually doing the research and responding to the answers, and doing, asking internally within their own agency, how do we do this? Because there's a lot of self-reflection about the agency. So this is what the expectation is. What do we do well in this space? Where could we improve in this space? So maybe it's about stakeholder engagement, and but not during the response phase, during the planning and prep phase. And I've done debriefs myself for agencies, and we're talking about breakdowns in inter-agency breakdowns in communication when we've been talking about them for 3 years. And I'm saying the communities aren't going to wear this. You need to take some action here and resolve this misunderstanding around roles and responsibilities, or who's doing what and when, and duplication. It's just not going to cut the mustard in 2022. So it's finding out those breakdowns at any stage along the process, and looking at them in a more positive and strategic way about how we're going to actually improve this, so that when we come together, it's more productive. So I think doing the research, asking internally, and thinking about it in a different way to an operational response, like dealing with it at the front end. But we've got to get past that into that lessons learned, and then translating that lessons learned into actual improvement. And I think that's a big gap for agencies.
And just quickly before I go to Selena, in terms of finding the time to complete the course, what sort of support is provided to students when they're struggling to find the time in with, amongst their busy jobs as well?
Look, I would just say we give you 30 days, and that's really to keep you on track. If you need more, that's no big deal. But probably the biggest piece of advice would be, don't stew on something. If you read the first thing you've got to do, and then you read the second thing you've got to do, and you think, I don't know how to do any of that, I don't know how to do any of that, reach out then, and we'll explain it. And if you've done the reading that we've given, we'll explain it, and then you can move on. But if you sit there and stew about it, you just churn up time and you get yourself more overwhelmed. So reach out early.
Yep, I do that nearly every day in my job. So thanks for the advice. Selena, what's your question? And hello to both of you.
Thanks. I was just wondering, with exercises like the kind of just design and implement exercises, if our agency decides it's not a priority at the moment, given they're meant to be kind of real activities, or something like COVID comes up again, can they, I guess, kind of be looking at delivering like desktop online type exercises / slightly not 100% realistic exercises with a smaller group of people if the agency is not 100% on board? That makes sense?
Yeah, for the design EM exercise anyway, Selena, you don't have to deliver them. You're just designing them. There's 2 units, and one's in the advanced diploma, and that's manage and evaluate an exercise. Right. But for the diploma, you just have to design it to a standard that, would withstand scrutiny. So it can be a desktop. There's 2 that you design. One's a multi-agency and one's an intra-agency. But you can do 2 multi-agency ones if you're in a group like that would be doing support to a number of different agencies all the time. That's all you do. Health's a bit like that. They're always working in support or alongside another agency, or often. So you don't have to deliver it. You just have to write them And we give you templates so that that you will make them comprehensive and understand why you're exercising this particular issue, and help you to write really smart, the actual smart objectives around it. So so they're useful, and you can just use them in your unit or wherever, whichever you're working. You build a bank, you know, 2 extra exercises that we need to look at.
Yep, wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so I'll jump in again if you're still thinking of questions. What advice have you got in the application phase? So for any of those that haven't submitted their application yet, but are looking for some tips from you about what they might submit in their application that would get them across the line. Have you got any tips for them?
I think if you've got evidence of you know, where you've undertaken study or undertaken well, I imagine some are volunteers here, so you're already juggling lots of responsibilities. So not that we don't prioritize volunteers, we sort of, you know, it's all the same, but that you can manage multiple things, because it is an additional responsibility that you've got to do. So how you've done that in the past would be good. You know, I think that's useful. I think wanting to demonstrate where you can how you think this qualification will assist you in your role, but also the agency that you're working for. So that appreciation of, you know, translating where they're trying to go and how they're trying to get there, and this critical role that we have of a frontline leader in this organisation, and how that drives some of those objectives. It's the engine room, for want of a better term. So, you know, that sort of discussion or how you've done that before would be good. I think, you know, we're looking for evidence. Yeah.
That is gold, Philippa. That is I hope everybody heard that, because you just heard straight from Philippa some really good tips about what to put in your 250 words. As somebody on the assessment panel in the past for this scholarship program, some of the things that I was looking for is demonstration from somebody's commitment and passion to further themselves and their knowledge in the sector, and you know, to spend some time to really make it really clear that this is something that you really want, that this is something that you're going to really embrace, and it's going to enable you to take the next step. So that's what I look for when I'm looking for applications, somebody that is demonstrating commitment and passion, and that this is going to be really life-changing for them, because that inspires me to encourage and support women through the program as well, if we know this is going to be really life-changing for people, because that's life-changing for me. That makes my world spin. So yeah. Kate's asked a question regarding lodging a resume with the application. No, Kate, we don't ask for you to submit your resume or a CV, just a letter of support from somebody else to support your application. I'm not quite sure whether we could accommodate that, but it wouldn't, I guess, be fair if you submitted a resume and others didn't. So we want to treat everybody on the same playing field. So minimum requirements as designated. Anything in addition that's submitted, we probably wouldn't consider, because that might be seen as an unfair advantage. So yeah, hold on to your resume. Kelly's asked about the RPL process and how that works. That's a good question.
Okay. Yep.
Prior learning. Yeah.
Yep. So it's different to a credit transfer. So if you hold the unit, it's a credit transfer. But if you don't hold the unit, but you think you have evidence to demonstrate. So say you've written exercises in the past for your agency, and you have 2 full exercise plans that you want to submit as a recognition of prior learning. You could submit those plans, and because it's nationally accredited and we have a template that we need to map against, you know, is the governance there, are the resources being managed, all these headings. If we can map it back to that, then you'd be awarded RPL for that unit. On our website, there's there's an RPL kit, and there's information as to, for emergency management people, some samples of what you can submit for RPL. So we've got managed projects is a core unit. If you've done a project, it doesn't have to be an emergency management project, but if you've done a project as part of your work, a major project, you can submit that. I will always preface this with, you should redact anything that's identifying or confidential, and that just means black it out or change it in a search and replace, so that, you know, nothing confidential from your organisation is coming through. But I would talk to you about that anyway beforehand, before your submission. But we don't want confidential information coming through. But you can still send me a project plan, and that could be sufficient for that unit, so you don't have to redo that unit. And it's the same with liaise with other organisations. There's meeting minutes that would come, but obviously if it's a private meeting, but you're on the local emergency management committee in New South Wales or the zone one in Victoria, you can redact the contents of the minutes, but we have your evidence that you were there at that meeting. So they're the sorts of things that I would suggest to you when the time came for that tailored learning plan. So you can't just say I've coordinated resources for a multi-agency incident, which is another one of the core. We would need to gather evidence of that. So that would be rosters, and which shows you doing certain coordination roles and documents and things like that. So that's how the RPL works. And then if you're granted RPL, sorry, Amanda, if you're granted RPL, it just comes off you only have to do one less unit then.
Yep, and that's what I was just going to follow up with, that, you know, how would that map into what you'd be required to do? So obviously if somebody's successful in the scholarship, they would have those conversations in more detail with you.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, good one. Kelly, I hope that answers your question. Is there anything to follow up, or are you good with the answer that you've got on the RPL?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Yeah, I was just wondering, so in the kit, I'm happy to apply for a kit for future reference, but so you'd get a detailed description of each unit so that you can kind of assess for yourself whether you might have enough to meet the RPL for that unit?
Yes, yeah. So we have there's a general kit, but then for each qualification there's more information. And see, sometimes one piece might be a couple of units. So if you've written, say, if you've worked at local council and written the recovery plan or the emergency response plan, or been part of writing that, then obviously that's, as part of that, you're going to have spoken to a lot of stakeholders as part of doing that. So that's 2 units. One is the plan, and we get a third-party report, but your name would be on the documents and the meeting minutes. And then the second unit would be liaise with other organisations. So there's a couple in the mix there because it's a big piece of work.
Great, thank you.
Good one. How are we going for questions? We've covered some really useful information, Philippa. I'm so glad that we've decided to hold this session, because I've learned a lot as well.
It's good
about the program. So that's good for us in case people ask us down the track. Are there any other big or little questions that anyone wants to ask while we've got Philippa?
Just going through the thing myself, make sure there's nothing else I wanted to say.
While you're thinking of questions, I've just extracted, and you may have seen this on the website, some comments that some of our previous scholarship winners have said about the program. One of them has said that she noted that she's struggled in the past to commit to studies, obviously with full-time work, but she said she found this opportunity completely different. She was incredibly supported to complete each subject, and Philippa was very understanding when work and life got in the way. Obviously working in emergency management in 2020, that made things challenging. So she said it aligned perfectly with what she had going on at work. So the majority of the assessments and what she was learning in the subject she was using immediately in a live context and in practice. So she says she learned so much, and she's been inspired to use her new skills and improve overall preparedness, prevention, response and recovery in her role. So direct impact of what she's learning into the role that she's performing. So that's an incredible strength. It's not learning something and then going and finding a job to use it in. It's actually live learning, which is amazing. Our other successful scholarship winner talked about the flexibility and support that was provided to her to make sure that she was able to continue her work and study at the same time. She's referenced your wealth of knowledge stretching across the emergency management sector, Philippa. And she said that's really well captured in all the learning resources, and how much you shared during the tutorials is so highly valued. She said it's a great way to deepen her knowledge of the emergency management sector. And a great part of studying with you is that the teaching and the assessments are tailored specifically to the state and the agency and the role. So there was a lot of bespoke tailoring for the individuals studying. So it could be really relevant to where they were, which organisation they're with and what role they've got, or what role they're aspiring to be. So she says as a result of that, it was really useful and workable knowledge that she's applying straight away in her work and volunteer role. She said the one-on-one tutorials were a fantastic way to absorb the subject matter and the reading that she was collating in her brain. And also the tailored professional development advice that she got throughout the course of the program was valuable as well. So I don't know that I could probably say much more to demonstrate the richness and the great opportunity that this provides to anyone who's studying this course, straight from the people who have studied. So it sort of reflects what you've said. Incredible opportunity for people to participate and take advantage of building their skills and applying them straight away.
Well, they're very kind, but they're both, those two were great. Yeah, just, and she tailored it herself around her own work. So she had a plan, and that's what I just tried to support the plan. But yeah, they both were committed. But I mean, one was a journey for her, like work-wise and things like that. It took a little bit longer, went the long way round. But yeah, I think got there. And I hope that by being a bit flexible, we kept her, because she's a sparkler for this industry, an absolute
well, as I said,
sparkler.
I know both of these women well, and I have interactions with them regularly, and I'm so grateful to have their words of wisdom that they're sharing with me. So it comes back to people like me that have been working in the sector for a long time. I'm actually now learning from them because they've got the new knowledge. So I'm grateful that we keep them in our network, and I continue to get to learn from them after they've gone through the program.
Oh, I think that's and the tutorials are a lot about that, Amanda. I'm learning from so many different people all the time. So they're not a sort of a lecture, the tutorials. They're, much more sharing and engaging, so with people and where they're at and how we could apply this and how you could apply that, problem solving as we're doing it. So yeah, I think I pick up a lot from them too, and I find that quite energizing. And so do the other facilitators that we have that work on any of the EM programs. So yeah, it's an evolving discipline.
It sure is. Let's hope we're learning. Selena has a great question. She wants to know how long or short the reference letter should be. Now, there's no requirement here, but let me give you a tip. For people that go through and read all of these applications, it gets tedious pretty quickly. We're reading lots and lots and lots. So I think a one-pager would be a maximum to get a letter of support from somebody. That person should be able to articulate in one page why they are recommending you for the scholarship. Anything longer than that is probably going to wear thin on patience and time commitments of those that are making the decisions. So short and sweet, articulate and concise if you can, but a page is good. Did you want to add anything, Selena, to your question? No, thanks. Good, thanks, Selena. All right, so we've got about 15 minutes left. I am going to recap some important points. Applications are now open. They close on the 30th of April. You're required to get that letter of support, so don't leave it to the last minute. There will be a shortlisting process and short interviews for the shortlist as part of the process, and we'll be making the decision and announcing the winners of the 2 scholarships in May. So get online to the OR Network website I've put the links in the chat box. Make sure you get them down, but they're all available. Go to the AWE website, have a look under programs and scholarships, and you'll get all the information you need, plus links through to Philippa's organisation and course information and an information kit. So everything you should need for that process is online, plus the answers that you've heard today. We are available if you've got some further questions. So if anything comes up you're not sure about, send us an email at info@awenetwork.org.au and we'll get straight back to you, and we'll get Philippa to answer those questions if we can't answer them for you. So I'm looking forward to having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 applications, if you haven't put it in already, in our inbox in the coming days. So really excited and so grateful that we now have 2 opportunities available. So that increases your chances. Wonderful. If there are no further questions, I am going to call an end to the session. Once again, thank you very much to Philippa for your generosity and support now for 3 years in supporting us as we support women in the emergency sector across Australia. We, like you, think the role of women is incredibly important. Hashtag us too. We do all of that too. So with the added skills that you give to our network and our members, we can flourish as we are already and continue to do so. So thanks everybody for your time. I hope you've learned something. I look forward to receiving your applications, and please continue to engage with your network, participate in our online events. If you want to do something face-to-face, please let us know and we can help you organise something. I can't wait to see you all in person at some stage soon once we really start travelling. So great to see your faces. Philippa, final words?
No, I'd encourage you to definitely put an application in, and yeah, I'll look forward to working with whoever gets it, but certainly or gets them. But yeah, keep going in the sector. We need lots of women in the sector feeling confident.
Yes.
And that's when we contribute the most, is when we're feeling confident. So it's all about building that with a background of capability.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. And
Right.
any final words, Bridget, before I close off the recording and say good day to everybody?
No, thanks for coming, everybody. Great to see you all. I can just tell you're an awesome group of women. We're really lucky to have you as members, and we look forward to getting your applications. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
I was going to say, are you going to